We all know and love crock pot dinners because they just make life so easy, but stay to the end of this video where I'm giving you my very best crock pot tip. It has changed crock pot meals for us.
Tonight for dinner, we are having a Korean beef in the crock pot. Really easy to make and pull together. I'm gonna go ahead and do everything now. I also have some rice that we're gonna prepare to go with this, and I'm thinking about maybe doing some green beans on the side. All right, so I'm gonna use my measuring glass bowl thing here as a mixing bowl. The first thing I wanna add is some minced garlic. You could add, dried garlic if you want to, but I'm gonna add about 2 cloves of garlic. We have a 1/2 cup of, this is the no soy sauce, but you can use soy sauce, low sodium, whichever you prefer. Coconut aminos would be fine. If you are gonna use coconut aminos though, I highly suggest cutting down on the brown sugar content. I'm already cutting down on the brown sugar, but coconut aminos is a lot sweeter than soy sauce, so you wanna cut that down a bit. For the brown sugar, we're using a 1/2 cup of brown sugar to get that mixing together. Okay, I am gonna add a little bit of cayenne chili pepper, and you can skip this if you don't want any heat at all. Just a touch though. It's really probably a 1/4 teaspoon, not very much. You can add red pepper flakes, whatever your preference is there. And I have about a 1/4 cup of tapioca flour. Feel free to use cornstarch. I'm gonna mix it. Actually, let me switch to my whisk. We're gonna whisk it together and then add a little bit more, whisk that together, add a little bit more, making sure I get it nice and combined. A little more. And the last bit. Okay, I'm gonna set this to the side for just a minute and kind of let all those flavors sit together and work together. The brown sugar is almost dissolved at this point, but I really would like for it to completely dissolve. So if I just set it to the side for a second, that's gonna help that work. We are using flank steak today, and I'm gonna be using both of these, which totals about 1.5 pounds. I just realized I have the sauce here and I never added in oil. So we need about 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of oil. It's up to you how much you wanna add, but good thing we hadn't finished this up yet, so that's all right. I can feel that the sugar is all dissolved. So let's go ahead and pour this all over the beef. A little bit of sugar there at the bottom, but not much at all. Okay, let's get this into our crock pot. Lid on. I'm gonna cook this on low for about 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours, kind of depending. It is currently 11 o'clock, so that will be perfect timing. All right, this has been in for almost 8 hours. The sauce is like I don't want to call it thick, but it's not a thin consistency either. I'm gonna take this out and put it on this cutting board here and just try and shred it a little. And then I might just let the sauce sit for just a couple minutes with the lid off, then put the meat back in there. And if it's sitting in there, because I actually turned it on to high just a few minutes ago to start to thicken up that sauce, if it's sitting there with the lid off, it should thicken up even more. Then we'll mix the beef in with that sauce. Okay, so just push that to the side for a minute and shred this up. You barely have to touch it. Okay, I'm not even gonna put a ton of effort in here. Looks really good. Oh my goodness, you guys. I mean, you can see this is falling right apart. I've got some rice in the rice maker. We're gonna put this on top of rice. If you really want to thicken up your sauce, take it over to the stove top and put it in a saucepan for just a couple of minutes. That's really going to thicken it up and caramelize it. Let's try this. That's really good. All right, so I'm just going to give this a mix because it's just been, you know, kind of all sitting in one place for a little bit. And let's leave the lid off for about 15 minutes. Just see what happens. We can throw it into a saucepan and thicken it up if we need to. It won't take long at all in a saucepan. Now, if you have one of those cool new crock pots, then you can just turn it onto the saute function and it'll thicken up your sauce really easily. All right, here's what I'm doing. I just took about a cup of our sauce out, and I'm gonna heat it over medium-high-ish heat over here on the stove because I wanna drizzle with a little bit thicker of a sauce. We still got some here in the crock pot though. Let's go ahead and put the meat back in there, mix it together, and keep it nice and warm. Another thing you can do is to take the meat and throw it under the broiler for just a couple of minutes and get kind of like those burnt edges, which adds it's a really good flavor. So there's a lot of additional steps that you can take with this one to add extra flavor. If you just want to keep it simple, just toss all the meat back in there with the sauce, mix it together, serve it over rice, and you're good to go. Okay, we're gonna take some of the barbecue or the Korean beef and put it on the top of this rice. Oh
man, that looks good.
Looks good, right?
Man.
Now I do think if you broil it, it's gonna darken up a bit, which does make it more Korean beef-ish. Okay, we thickened up a little bit of this sauce. Let's add some sesame seeds.
Definitely tastes like a Korean fare.
Yeah. We only have black sesame seeds right now, but the white ones would look really pretty. And then top that with some green onion. I am holding these backwards. We have seconds before the battery dies on this camera, so. That's really tasty.
That was really tasty. And perfect for some Cholula. On my plate.
Always putting hot sauce on everything I make. I do think if you're willing to take the extra step, if you pop this under the broiler and it adds those burnt ends, it really is gonna take it up a notch.
Yeah.
Although I think it is absolutely delicious just as is. It's really pretty. I love when I get a piece of beef and there's like a burnt, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
The burnt ends on any type of roast like that is really good.
But this is not dry.
No, not at all. I mean, this is
mouth-watering.
This was crock pot. This is a crock pot meal.
How long have you done this?
It's been in there for almost 8 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been on low for almost 8 hours. I turned it up high for the last 30 minutes just to get the sauce to thicken up.
And which steak did you use?
The flank.
Flank? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
that's good.
But it's good. It's
delicious.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that supposed to be Mom's plate?
Those green beans aren't bad.
Right? I put some sweet Thai chili sauce on them.
That's pretty good.
We've had a very rainy week, and today, yet again, it is rainy. So we're going to make a crock pot meal. I feel like this is one of those that's just heartwarming and hearty when you have a day like today. It's not cold by any means, but it's a heartwarming meal. This is a crock pot creamy tikka masala, and I've heard people say tikka masala. I've heard people say tikka masala. Whenever I order at a restaurant that one of our friends from church actually owns, he says tikka masala. So however you say it, there's a couple adjustments that I've learned, especially over the last, I would say, year in the crock pot that make a crock pot meal so much better. And I'm gonna share them with you. I shared them in my last crock pot video, some adjustments that we made. We've been doing this on repeat and it is so good, okay? So just stay with me because those tips are really gonna help you. If you've had a crock pot meal in the past and you're like, this just isn't for me, this really might make a difference. I've got my measuring cup here and we're using this really to mix all of our ingredients, all of our sauce that we're gonna be using. And we're just a family of 4 here tonight. So I'm gonna be making 1 pound of, what am I looking for? 1 pound of chicken. And we're gonna serve this over rice. So we need about a clove of garlic. I'm gonna put it here into my mixing cup. You can absolutely grate your own ginger, but we love this ginger paste. It's all coming out, okay. About a half tablespoon of that ginger paste. Let me clean this off. Also feel free to add shallot, onion, whatever your favorite flavors are in here. This spice right here, garam masala. Now, this is one of those that if you don't make a lot of Indian flavors, it might be a little bit of an investment for you. I think this one was maybe around $6.99 or something like that, right around $7. We make a lot of Indian flavors, so I like to have this one on hand. I have made this before without garam masala. Okay, we're doing a tablespoon of this. So it's not a small amount, and that's why I say, I mean, I have made it before without it, but it's really such good, I'm gonna add a little bit more. This is a half tablespoon measurer, by the way, which is why I'm doing it twice. The ingredients of this are cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, cumin, black pepper, and coriander. So if you already have all of those, you can definitely just make this. You don't have to feel like you need to go out and buy it. This is turmeric. 3/4 of a teaspoon or so, right under a teaspoon of the turmeric. Few tablespoons of Greek yogurt. This one is non-fat. You can definitely use a full-fat Greek yogurt. Honestly, most recipes would want you to do a full-fat Greek yogurt. We always have non-fat in our house, so that's what I'm going for. I'm just gonna start to combine this a little bit. The aroma of this, it's wild. It's so good. Okay, I'm gonna add some chili flakes just to give it a little bit of heat. If you have a crushed version, that's fine too. I mean, I'm really just adding a very small amount, but we like a little bit of heat on this. Okay, let's just let this sit together for a minute. And I'm gonna pull out the next bit of ingredients. We need about a half can of tomato paste. I never use a full can of tomato paste, so I end up freezing it and I just put it in little baggies, portioned out to what I need. So I just thawed it out in this little cup that had hot water in it. And now we can add it to the dish. Now here you can add water, about maybe a 1/4 cup or so, just a little bit of water. I actually made bone broth the other day, so I'm just gonna pull from that. Mine is very gelatinous, so don't be alarmed. Our bone broth that's homemade typically is a lot more gelatinous than what you would get in the grocery store, so don't be alarmed by that. But you can use chicken broth, chicken stock, water, whatever you prefer, totally fine. That is honestly part of the reason why I make it homemade, because the gelatin is really good for your extra, well, it's good for extra protein, it's good for your joints, all that kind of stuff. So we home make it quite a bit. Whenever I have a whole chicken, we always make bone broth from it. Okay, stir all that together. Now, I have a pound of chicken thighs already in my crock pot insert, and this is where the trick comes into play. Okay, let me explain and then we'll move on. One thing that I've learned recently about the crock pot is whatever you're cooking is gonna produce its own liquid. So a lot of times you get to the end of a crock pot meal and you're like, why is this so liquidy? It's not even saucy, it's just liquid. So one thing that we've been doing, and you probably saw it in my last crock pot video, if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it here, great recipes in that one. We only add a portion of the sauce while it's cooking because you want it to cook in those flavors. You really want the sauce to enhance the flavor of the protein. But then before the meal is done, you're gonna dump out the liquidy portion of the crock pot and add in the rest of the sauce. Okay, so the chicken will be cooked at that time, but we're adding some more sauce. We're only gonna let it really heat up for like 30 minutes or so, just depending on the recipe, and it's gonna be more saucy, less liquidy. So if that's been your issue before, that's kind of our new trick. So with that tip in mind, we're gonna take the sauce that we made and just add maybe a third of it. Okay, so we're just adding enough that it's going to cook in with this chicken and just enhance those flavors, you know, really add flavor to the chicken. Okay, so we're really just cooking it just like this. I'm probably gonna cook this on low for about 4 hours. You could do high for 3 hours, you could do low for maybe like 5 to 6 hours. I typically find that overall I want chicken thighs to cook for 4.5 to 5 hours on low, but I'm gonna come back in about 3.5 to 4 hours to add something else. So we're still gonna have some more cooking time. So let's start with that. Low, 3.5-ish to 4 hours starting. This next part you could do later, but I'm gonna go ahead and just mix up the rest of the sauce so that it will be ready to go. And I won't have any more, well, I still have a little bit to do, but it won't be quite as much work to do later on. This is a can of coconut, this is coconut cream. You can use a can of coconut milk. Use the unsweetened one, that's a big deal. Otherwise you're gonna get a pretty sweet dish. And more than likely that's not what you're going for in this dish. I'm only using a half a can. So the other half of the can, y'all, if you're not home making your, what's it called? Coffee creamer? So good. So the other half of the can will get used in that. So our sauce is made. I'm just gonna throw this in the refrigerator so that it's ready to go for later. There's a little bit of a brown butter thing that we're gonna do. It's an optional part, but I am gonna do it to really enhance the flavors of this dish. But again, you do not have to do that at all. It's more of like a topping that goes on it. I'll show it to you later though. Okay, let's take a look here. It's been about 3.5 hours. Do you see all that extra water that has basically come out of the chicken in the cooking process? That's what we need to get rid of. That's what most people do not like. That's why most people do not like crock pot meals. That right there. So we're gonna change it, okay? This is what I did in the previous recipes, and I'm telling you, it changes everything. It changes the way you're gonna feel about a crock pot meal. So we need to pull out the cooked chicken. I'm just gonna set it into a bowl for a minute. You can just pour this out with the chicken in there if you want, but I wanna be safe and not pour any chicken down the drain. So I'm gonna be really careful and just go ahead and pull the chicken out. Now we can take the insert and dump the liquid. My chicken is gonna go back here into the crock pot, and we're gonna pour over all of the rest of that sauce. If you would like to cube your chicken, you can. I find it really easily just kind of breaks apart as you're mixing this all together. So pour this all over. It's gonna make a lot of sauce, guys, okay? So you can make less if you want, but we like saucy. We like it really saucy. So now you're gonna have a sauce, not a watery sauce, a good sauce. So we just really want this to heat through, and it won't take long. Now, another thing you can do if you really want this sauce to kind of thicken up a little bit is offset your lid on the crock pot just a bit so that it doesn't retain all the moisture inside of the crock pot. I've done this a couple times. Something it's really helpful for is making apple crisp in the crock pot. It'll still allow everything to heat through, but the moisture won't stay in and reincorporate, kind of like dripping back in, you know? Okay, so we're gonna put this back over there. I'm gonna turn it back on. Let's keep it on a low. I think it's fine. We still have maybe an hour before we're ready to eat, and then we'll make the rice over here in the rice maker. Another thing you could do to this, if you want to add a vegetable to it, broccoli would be a really good addition. I would add it now. Okay, so that's not something I like, a little bit of crunch on mine, so I wouldn't add it any earlier than this. While that was finishing up, I made some naan, so we can have naan with dinner tonight. So good. It's really easy to make. It's a little time consuming, but pretty easy to make. If you're using a bigger pan than I did, you can probably cook more than one at a time, but we cooked 8 pieces individually. Now I'm gonna move over to the stovetop because there's a quick little thing that I wanna do with kind of a brown butter, sesame seed type of thing, and that can just be our topping for this recipe. So I'm gonna move over there and do that real quick, and then we'll be ready to serve. I'm using the pan that I made the naan in because I don't feel like washing another one. So I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of butter into this pan. It's already nice and hot. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of sesame seeds. We do not have white sesame seeds right now. I only have black, so that's the ones that we're gonna use. Add some paprika, just a touch for a smokiness, and just a touch of red pepper flakes for some heat. With the butter frothing like this, that's what you want. It's gonna make a brown butter type of consistency. So we're looking for those brown flecks, which it's a little hard to see right now just because I've got the paprika in there. Okay, you see those brown bits at the bottom? That is what we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the heat. Okay, so this is what happens when you use that trick. You get a sauce, a nice creamy sauce, not a watery sauce, the perfect consistency. We're gonna add on, this is parsley, but cilantro would be delicious. My cilantro is not grown enough to actually get any leaves from it. And then I'm gonna top that off with some chive. Or actually, these are called bunching onions, not chives. Restaurant worthy, really pretty looking. restaurant taste worthy too. That is good.
It's really, really
Oh my
delicious.
goodness. It does have a little bit of kick, just like ever so slight. If you don't want that, don't do the chili flakes. That's gonna prevent any of the spice, because everything else has spice in flavor, but not spice in heat. But
yeah, and great for naan too. You can
wow.
just wrap a naan around that.
Oh, we're gonna be putting that in bowls to dip the naan in for sure.
Oh yeah.
Very, very good, y'all.
And what was this?
That is, it's like a brown butter with, it looks like caviar. Brown butter with black sesame seeds. It's typically made with white sesame seeds, but it's more for the look than anything else. It just adds some depth, looks like. But
Oh, mama.
you got a chili flake. There's chili flakes in that part.
In that one?
Yeah. Yeah. This is really delicious though.
Yeah, it is. It is
Truly,
good.
the depth of flavor in this one is very good. Y'all, that's a crock pot meal, okay? I told you, this is how you make the good crock pot meal. Pour out that extra liquid before you mix in the sauce.
Yeah. You said this was parsley?
Yeah. Don't you think it would be good with cilantro?
It may, but it may overpower it.
Yeah.
I mean, parsley is good too. And the onions you put in there. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Can't wait to eat.
Our verse today comes from 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're new here, I'd love if you'd subscribe and stick around. Hit that red subscribe button. I've got amazing things up and coming. You're not going to want to miss them. And check out the video that I have right here in the center of the screen. These recipes are so good. You don't want to miss it. Have a great week.